Enthusiasts' die-hard connection to Seiko has been created through many familiar players. We know the names: Seiko 5, Alpinist, Turtle, Samurai, and way too many more to list unless we sat here for another minute. The short of it is that many of the mechanical creations from the brand represent the focus. However, today we look at one of the most historically important sub-brands of Seiko, which amongst enthusiasts is nearly forgotten: the Astron. With a lineage that traces back to one of the most significant developments in horological history, the Astron in the contemporary lineup serves as one of the most tech-forward playgrounds for the Seiko brand, offering a watch that can essentially set itself, walking the line between traditional watchmaking and smartwatch capabilities. Let's go back Christmas Day 1969, where it marked a revolutionary milestone in the watch industry with the release of the Quartz Astron 35 SQ, which had been under development for 10 years. Seiko employed quartz technology beforehand, famously in a table clock in 1963, the crystal chronometer, which went on to win chronometry prizes at the Neuchâtel Observatory competition. Interestingly, quartz technology was also being worked on in Switzerland at the time, and this is something that many people don't talk about as well, but it was the Astron that took off and disrupted the market. Seiko utilized a stepper motor in their design, resulting in a single tick per second and increased efficiency, with an extended battery life being a significant advantage that contributed to its wider popularity. The fallout of this revolutionary advance in timekeeping included simplified production, you had cheaper movements, and greater accuracy, all on a mass scale. The Astron has persisted and evolved over time, being rethought in 2012, and is now where Seiko's most high-tech, complicated models exist. This is the contemporary Seiko Astron SSH107. It's a personal watch of my colleague Danny Milton, and he loaned this to me to wear for a few weeks for a review. So when I try to tackle a review, there is a checklist in my mind on how I can give an idea of what the watch is all about. But the Astron is such a different proposition that I almost had to rethink what is the best way to really experience this watch and drive home all of the points that I think are important to take home. The Astron is not to the same level of a modern smartwatch, however, it shares characteristics that get it much closer, leading to an unconventional experience for those that have a propensity to rely on mechanical timekeepers for daily wear. Now, combining these points with its elevated price, it took me a little bit longer to come around to giving the Astron a closer look. I think a sentiment that many other enthusiasts that are passionate about Seiko also probably share. And although this is a very specific type of watch for a very specific type of watch buyer, hence why these are not talked about that often, I did come away with a newfound appreciation being able to spend some time with this one, because there is a lot here. It's pretty damn cool. Before getting into aspects like the style, size, and materials, it probably makes sense to discuss the movement tech first, as there is a lot of features to highlight. And since many of them are dependent on satellite technology, let's talk about Seiko's adoption of GPS within their movements. Of course, atomic clock synchronization via radio signal already existed before the modern Astron, but the reception was somewhat less reliable than GPS and not always available worldwide, so Seiko rightly thought they could do better. The first Astron to employ global positioning was the 7X series, a watch with some rather cutting-edge details. Besides its titanium construction and ceramic bezel, the caliber 7X52 inside was the first example of a mass-produced movement that was able to set itself via its position. Something that's taken for granted with all the wearable electronics that we have today, but revolutionary within the context of a wristwatch at that time. Until that point, incorporating satellite technology within the confines of a wristwatch was a daunting task, given the requirement of around 200 times that of radio-controlled watches. In addition to this challenge, a large antenna was required for proper satellite reception, and Seiko was able to solve both of these puzzles with the 7X series. Still, the 38mm diameter of the antenna resulted in a watch that was 47mm in diameter and 16.5mm thick. However, in the ensuing years, Seiko gradually reduced the antenna size to about 1/4 of the original, while boosting reception by 1.5 times, resulting in the ability to receive satellite signals up to twice a day for superior timekeeping. And when you consider all this was accomplished with a solar-powered movement, the Astron seems even more remarkable, a highly accurate watch that sets itself and one that's powered by light. This Astron has the following function. You have dual time functionality, AM PM indicator, day of the week display, a perpetual calendar to the year 2100, a time transfer function that allows you to instantly switch between 2 time zones on the main dial and the sub dial, and daylight savings time. And mind you, this is just getting into the timekeeping and calendar functions. Additional features include solar power with a 6-month power reserve that extends to 2 years in a power save mode. You have a power reserve indicator, overcharge prevention, GPS signal functionality, including time zone adjustment, satellite acquisition status display, automatic hand alignment, and even an airplane mode that switches off GPS reception during flights. Charging of the caliber can come from natural or artificial light. 50 hours of direct sunlight will do the job, or 48 to 72 hours under 10,000 lux of artificial light, which candidly does take quite a bit of time to do so, but if you do wear this watch somewhat regularly and you don't just put it in a drawer or some dark area in your house, you're not gonna really have to worry about this, as it does have that long reserve of power. What makes all of this the more cool is that given that these watches are receiving signals from satellites, the watch can essentially set itself, which for someone like me who doesn't involve himself in wearable tech, it's kind of a strange reality to see a watch with a signed dial with Seiko be able to do this. There's also some manual features that we can highlight. The watch's local time zone at the central dial can be set by pulling the crown to the 2nd position and then rotating it forward and backward. And at the farthest point, the dual time display can then be adjusted in a similar manner, being tied to that AM/PM display. Let's look at another scenario. Say this watch was mistakenly set incorrectly through a manual override, or its power ran out after months being in a desk drawer, and you want to get the watch to do most of the work for you. In this case, you will need to go outside, and by holding the right pusher for 3 seconds or so, the watch will start scanning to receive a signal or signals from satellites. And after a minute to 2 minutes, it then will jump into place. You'll see the hands jump to place to show the proper time. You'll have the date be adjusted and the day to that desired end result. In my time wearing this watch, I ended up playing around with setting the time manually and doing it incorrectly, and then going outside to test how this works. And it's pretty slick to see all of this go into motion with just by pressing a single button and having the watch be smart enough with its synchronization to satellites to figure all this out. Apart from the tech and functionality of the caliber 5x53 movement, there's the aesthetic of the Astron series, and the watch word is thoroughly modern in its approach. The model family uses titanium almost exclusively, achieving a weight savings of around 40% compared to stainless steel, and the metal receives a super hard coating for enhanced scratch resistance, which I've always heard quoted around 500 Vickers in hardness. The SSH107 reference shown here is significantly more wearable than those early 7X models, with a diameter of 42.7 millimeters and a case height just over 12 millimeters and a lug-to-lug distance of 48 millimeters. You could do the math at home, and thinking about these dimensions, pretty straightforward, and actually wears like a traditional watch despite being far from it. The highly angular case features predominantly brushed finish with polished bezels, and features a UTC bezel, a push-pull crown that offers 100 meters of water resistance, and broad rectangular pushers. A solid screwed-in caseback showcases an etched globe design highlighting the watch's GPS capabilities. Underneath the dome sapphire crystal that offers anti-reflective coating, we get a clear view of the modernist silver gray dial, contrasted by purplish black subdials that serve as the windows to the watch's solar charging. A broad baton handset employs lume centers, as do the rectangular applied hour indices, which gain a hint of dimensionality from their rib sides and beveled edges. There's a frame date window at 4:30, and a floating Seiko wordmark sits above the Astron brand printed below 12. The titanium H-link bracelet continues the futuristic theme with the brushed H-links, and the bracelet offers a healthy taper. One thing to note, there's a slight protrusion of the male center link where the case meets the bracelet. So depending on your wrist size, that may add a bit to the perceived lug-to-lug. A short dual push button sign clasp features the Seiko logo on the top, and while there's no capacity for micro adjustment, the smaller links adjacent to the clasp should offer enough for a good fit for most. So as I mentioned throughout this video, this was a tough watch to review because it's unlike any other Seiko that I have ever reviewed on this channel, and it's a gap in my interest in the brand for quite some time. When I was first getting into Seiko, and that was in the early days of my collecting journey, Seiko was and still is an important part of my journey as a collector. I absolutely adore the brand, but the Astron was always this weird sub-brand of Seiko that I never showed that much interest in. It's not to say that they were bad watches by any means, they were just not for me, both from the aesthetic point of view, but also with some of the tech. But some of that I also recognize now after spending some more time with the Astrons as time has gone on, and definitely spending some more time with this specific one, that some of this was also just a lack of understanding of the full capability of these watches. Yes, they don't maybe look attractive compared to traditional ways in which we interpret beauty for watches, but you can't fault what this watch is and what it's presenting within the broader range of Seiko. It's, yes, at a higher price point compared to some of the entry-level models like the Seiko 5s and even the sub $1,000 category for Seiko. There's so much to choose from. It could be very easy to overlook what the Astron is. But if you're somebody that wants to dip your toes in the water for some of this wearable tech and smartwatch technology without really diving headfirst into it, this is where something like the Astron can make a lot of sense. It does have a more wearable presence than you might think. The design might not be for everybody, but there are a variety of different styles within the Astron family to go for if you want something less busy than this. And if you're all about practicality and for a watch to make rational sense, the Astron is as good as any in making sense. It is going to be so simple to set. It sets itself. It is accurate as can be. I don't even need to talk about accuracy. This thing is as accurate as your phone. I was looking at my phone. It has atomic timekeeping, so you're not having to worry about setting this and dealing with the situation that so many enthusiasts with their mechanical watches sometimes get fixated on, is like, what's the accuracy at different positions? That is not a concern for this watch. It's an entirely different proposition for Seiko. It's a frontier that looks more towards the future, but also represents an aspect of their past that completely changed the industry. The Astron is not the watch for probably the die-hard Seiko lovers that like things like the Turtles, the Seiko 5s, the Alpinists, and many of those names that I mentioned at the beginning of this video. But nevertheless, it's a family of watches that probably is overlooked more than it should be, and is probably more viable for more enthusiasts out there. It just comes down to, are you willing to give it a closer look? Today, I finally did, and I'm coming away thinking, maybe I could wear one of these. But all right, guys, that's my take looking at the Seiko Astron. Again, just a strange watch, something I typically don't cover, but on paper, but also in practicality, a lot to like about it. Are you someone that is pro Astron? Have you ever given these a closer look? Do you own an Astron? I'd love to see some comments down below, because this is not the typical Seiko watch that people mention, and it is a gap and I think enthusiast knowledge for many out there. So if you are a proud owner of an Astron, you want to represent for the Astron, please leave some comments down below. Are there other Seiko models like this one that maybe get overlooked that you'd like us to take a closer look at in the future? Also leave a comment about that. If you enjoyed the video, please give this one a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Really do appreciate that. Also check out teddyballista.com, full authorized dealer for over 35 brands. Every purchase from our website comes with quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and a full factory warranty for all the products that we offer. And how we're able to continue to do what we do here is through selling watches. That's how our business operates. So really do appreciate the support. We'd love to have your business because it allows us to keep doing what we're doing. We love what we do. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.